Hi everyone, it's Lauren and I have a fun tag video for you today celebrating independent bookshops. Independent Bookshop Week is a campaign which is run by the Booksellers Association between the 18th and the 25th of June, and this tag was created by Will at the Vintage Vlog, whose video I shall link below in the description box, and is all about the joy of books and bookshops, which are something that I really love. So let's get started. The first question is, what book is currently in your bag? This is like an in-joke because the Booksellers Association also do the Books in My Bag campaign in October. And my answer for that is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, because of course it's everywhere at the moment. Lots of people have read it, have loved it. There's also some controversy about it and it is out in the cinema at the moment, so I thought I would read it and see what all of the fuss is about. Also, I've never read Jojo Moyes to begin with, but I don't really read romance novels very often, so I thought this would be a really interesting break for me. And also I always have my Kindle in my bag because I have like reader's fear, where I just worry that if I finish a book I won't have another one to read, so I just really like having it always, even if I'm reading a physical book, so that if I finish it, it's fine, I've got my whole library with me all the time. Question 2 is, what is the last great book you read? And for me, that's actually the last book I read, which is Girls Will Be Girls by Emma O'Toole. The main idea in this book is that gender is a performance, and when you are born, you are not born wanting to wear high heels if you are female, or wanting to be a car mechanic if you're male, or whatever. And it talks about the way that society defines gender roles, and that it's easier for someone to fit into those roles as their gender, and people who defy those norms or what society deems as appropriate for your biological sex, then that can be very, very difficult. And it's so interesting. It's really easy to read, and from the beginning it leads you into these theories just so easily. Like by the end I felt like I'm not an expert in gender theory, but she talks about quite a lot of different complex and theoretical things, but at the beginning it just brings you along on that journey, and you don't have to have any prior experience or knowledge about gender theory. Question 3 is, what book have you gifted the most? Now, I'm not someone who gifts people books very often, because the people that I know that read a lot, I worry that I'm going to give them something that they've already read, and the people that I know that don't read a lot, I just think, oh, I don't want to push all my reading up on you. But probably recently, the book I've gifted the most is The Improbability of Love by Hannah Rothschild, because I think this is really fun, and whether you read a lot or you don't read a lot, I think you're going to get something out of this book. This was shortlisted for the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction, and it's about a undiscovered painting, a lost painting which gets found in a junk shop, and lots and lots of people are trying to own this painting for all their different reasons, so it's a bit of a mystery, but it's also really fun and really funny. Question 4 is, what is your favourite independent bookshop? Now, I go in lots of different bookshops for different reasons, and a lot of it is to do with location, I'll be honest, but the really small independents, I really like the London Review bookshop, which is near the British Museum, because I just think it's got a really nice atmosphere in there. I really like the displays that they do, and there's a cafe attached to it as well, which has really nice little cakes, so it's just a really nice experience going in that bookshop. And another new one, which I need to explore a little bit more, is a bookshop just off Brick Lane called Libreria, which Jen Campbell took me to, and it just looks really interesting. It's like a little wonder cave of books. All of the bookshelves are curved and there's mirrors on the ceiling, so it just feels like you're in this complete world of books. Question 5 is, what's been your favourite book recommended to you by either a bookseller or a fellow booktuber? And I'm going to be really boring for this and just use Girls Will Be Girls again, because I'm not very good at taking recommendations from other people. I've realised when I was thinking of my answer for this question, there's lots of books that I've bought because other people have really loved them, but then maybe I haven't read them because I've just been reading other stuff. That's quite an interesting thing I've learned about myself, is that I don't really listen to people when it comes to choosing books. Question 6 is, what is your favourite bookshop memory? And I think for me that has to be about 2 years ago when I was going around Waterstones, and I'd saved up a load of money. I'd not bought books in ages. I think this was before I had a booktube channel, and I just went mental, and I just said, I'm going to spend all my money and buy loads of books. And I brought a tote bag with me. I was going around the shop putting all the books in there that I wanted, and then by the time I got to the till, I had 2 books which couldn't fit in my tote bag, so I just put them down on the till, and then the cashier said something like, okay, great, that's that's £10 or whatever, will you need a bag? And I was like, mate, I haven't paid for any of these. And I just like tipped it out on the till. And I was like, yeah, there's quite a lot of books in there that I need to pay for. And it just really made me laugh, because I could have just walked out of that shop with all of those books. No one had seen me going around on the shelves, like just putting these books in my bag. Question 7 is, what do bookshops mean to you, and what do you love about bookshops? And I think for me, before I really discovered BookTube as an outlet, it was just a really safe space and a really beautiful space, and I love just getting lost in bookshops and looking at all the shelves. I spend a lot of time when I do go proper bookshop shopping. I spend a long time looking around all the shelves, looking at all the different displays, reading all the blurbs, and it's just a wonderful thing to do. I love walking around bookshops by myself. It's quite an insular, imaginative process, deciding if you want to buy something and learning about new authors, and it's just a really comforting thing for me, going around bookshops. Question 8 is, what are the books that made you, or what books have most affected or influenced you? And I've got 3 books for this question. The first one is a set of short stories by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which is The Thing Around Your Neck, and I really love this collection because all of these stories are in some way connected with an immigrant experience and what it's like to come to a new country and be completely misunderstood, and that's an experience that I don't have, and it really opened my eyes in a lot of ways of what it must be like to go to a new country, and just small things about your culture which you take for granted other people don't understand. Similar to that was something I read last year, which was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. Now this is basically a long essay or speech, but it is fictionalized, and it's Virginia Woolf talking about what women need in order to progress and in order to become great writers, and the 2 things that she says you need are the means to support yourself and a room of one's own in which to write. And this just was a book that really spoke to me and made me see some things that I hadn't really thought about before in terms of feminism and the history of feminism, the history of men writing about women and women not having a voice of their own. There's a lot of topics in here that I love. There are a lot of sentences that I kept underlining. And finally, a book that really affected me, and still does when I think about it, is A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing by Emma McBride. And this is just beautiful. It's a very interesting book. It's written as a stream of consciousness, and at first is very difficult to read and very difficult to understand. I would recommend to keep giving it a go, because the more you get into her style, the more you're sort of getting what's going on, and you just get used to it by the end. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, heartbreaking story, I think, because it's told with such honesty from that main character's perspective. You just empathise with her so much. Question 9 is, what book would you recommend for Father's Day? Now this is quite difficult because, you know, I don't think there's a type of book that dads like reading. But a book that I have gifted to my dad in the past, and I've also gifted to my boyfriend's dad, is The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan, which won the Man Booker Prize in 2015. And this is about the Japanese prisoner of war railroad, and it's a very raw yet very beautiful book, and it's the kind of thing that I think my dad would be interested in, because it's sort of about war, and it's about a part of World War II that in the West at least we don't really hear about. So I thought my dad would like this. And question 10 is, what is at the top of your TBR or to be read pile? And for me, that is something very exciting, which is Emma McBride's new novel, which is The Lesser Bohemians, and I was sent an advanced copy of this last week. This isn't out until September. I honestly don't know anything about it, and I sort of want to go into it cold, because it's just my love for A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, which is making me really excited about this. So that's my attempt at the Independent Bookshop Week tag. I hope this was interesting. I'm not very good at tag videos and tagging other people in it, because I don't know who's done it already, but because this is such a beautiful tag about bookshops, which is something that's, I think, really important, I would love anybody who wants to have a go at this tag to have a go. So I tag everybody who's watching this who has a BookTube channel to join in. And if you are in the UK, there are events happening all across the country in your different independent bookshops between the 18th and the 25th of June, so please look them up. You can find details about them on the Independent Bookshop Week website, or just go into your local bookshop and see if they're doing anything during that week. If you don't have a BookTube channel, I'd love to hear your answers to these questions in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye!